Salaries Commission. It is jointly signed by the negotiating parties. The negotiating parties are the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, the Ministry of Labour, Jobs and Employment, and the Ministry of Finance, representing the government. And then there's organized labour as well. Now, the agreement on the base pay was witnessed by the Chief Executive of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, Benjamin Arthur, Minister for Labour, Jobs and Employment, Dr. Abdul Rashid Hassan Pelpo, the Chairman of the Forum, Dr. Isaac Bampoado, and Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress, Joshua Ansah. In fact, it is reported that organized labour had called for an increase in the base pay to cushion public sector workers against the high cost of living. The Minister of Labour, Jobs and Employment, Dr. Pelpo, explained that with the new agreement, the daily minimum wage had now risen to 19 cedis 97 pesos. And this is the second wage adjustment in less than a year after the first one in 2024. You know that the government last year increased public sector workers' pay by 23%. If you're joining us on our social media platforms, you're seeing this. The 2025 minimum wage, 19 cedis 97 pesos, and that is an increment of 10.03%, 1.82 pesos per day. Let me show you how it has traveled from 2015 to 2025 for daily minimum wage. In 2015, we're looking at some 7 cedis as daily minimum wage. Then 2016, 1 cedi was added, 8 cedis. 2017, we went to 8 cedis, 80 pesos. Then to 2018, 9 cedis, 68 pesos. That is how it has traveled so far. To 2019, we jumped to 10 cedis, 65 pesos. Then we entered into the 2020s. 2020, 11 cedis, 82 pesos. 2021, 12 cedis, 53 pesos. 2022, 13 cedis, 53 pesos. 2023, 14 cedis, 88 pesos. And then 2024, 18 cedis, 15 pesos. 2025, 19 cedis, 97 pesos. Let's speak with Daniel Opoku to explain to us how we arrive at these figures. Daniel, good to have you again joining us in the studio. How do we come by these figures? We say that it is too small, bearing in mind the cost of living, expenditure rises and all of that. Yeah. 19 cedis is small. How do we calculate these?
Right, so basically it's about this is just the minimum wage. A minimum wage simply means that that's the base that your employer is not supposed to pay you below.
Right.
So for instance, if you work in the private sector or you engage in businesses in the informal economy, it means that your employer should pay you a day 19 cedis, some 97 pesos.
At least.
Right. So the employer decides to pay you more than 19 cedis. Basically, that's the minimum of the minimum. But I want to look at the figures from 2015 up to 2025. Realize that just 1 cedi. Yes, because when they meet to negotiate, you have the employer telling the Ghana Employers Association telling you that they look at their operational costs and the expenditures that they make at the various workplaces. For that reason, when you increase the minimum wage, it also affects them. It becomes very difficult for them to operate. The obvious workers may have to be laid off. So they also look at that. Then from labor side, they also look at the cost of living. They look at inflation and also macroeconomic stability. So all these things are factored into the determination of them. After that, when they reach an amicable solution, that's when they agree on the figure. The figure is woefully inadequate, actually. From the perspective of workers, realize that the figure is woefully inadequate. But hey, that's what they have been able to agree. So just that you should be able to negotiate effectively with your employer to be able to increase from 19 cedis, possibly that to pay you beyond 50 Ghana cedis a day or somewhere around 25 or up to 50 cedis a day. But if you take 19 cedis, put all the computation together, then you are paid at the end of the month. So basically that's it. But it's a very difficult situation because they look at the general economic conditions before they were able to arrive at the figure.
Earlier in the morning, we're trying to feed ourselves with, let's say, 20 cedis.
Right.
And then we got to know that, Charlie, it will reach. It won't reach us anywhere. So this base pay, daily minimum wage, I should say, that also contributes to determining the base pay for public sector workers. Yesterday, a 10% increment was agreed between government and labor unions. Talk to us about it. How did it happen?
Right. So I think 2 weeks ago, I reported that the minimum wage was likely to be at 10%.
Okay.
And I got a lot of bashing from all those who thought that I was just misled. But indeed, as of the close of yesterday, they concluded on 10%. And the minimum wage serves as a base, if you're a finance minister, for you to project as to what labor will be asking for when you meet to discuss the base pay.
Okay.
Then you meet at the base pay level, then both government and organized labor agrees on 10%. So obviously, 10% for minimum wage, 10% for base pay. Now, they started the meeting on base pay last week, Friday.
Okay.
Labor tabled 60%.
60. Why?
Yes, that's last year they tabled 75. Because it's a negotiation. So it's just like going to the market to buy. So I'm selling this at 2 Ghana cedis. I can pay X amount of money. Labor tabled 60%.
Okay.
The finance minister came in and tabled 5%.
That's a whopping 55% difference.
Exactly. And then the meeting was postponed. They met on Monday. Labor moved from 60 to 40.
Okay, they reduced by 20%.
Exactly. Finance minister moved from 5% to 6%.
1%?
Yes, that. And then that meeting was inconclusive. They met on Tuesday. Yes, they met on Tuesday and then Wednesday as well. So they met really 2 days. Labor moved from 40 to 35.
Okay.
Finance minister was not able to move.
So he was still at 6%.
Then yesterday...
No, Daniel, hold on for me. So what influences the decision of labor to ask for these numbers?
Now, before they go into the main body to negotiate, they meet as a caucus. So let's table a higher figure. Definitely when you drop to a level playing ground. That will be...
So the 60% is because they were taking into consideration cost of living mainly.
Look at cost of living, price of goods on the market, so look at inflation, and look at the conditions of general conditions of service within the country. They look at all those things before
they come out with a figure, 60%.
Exactly.
And now eventually they got to 35%.
They got to 35.
Government still is at 6%.
Still at 6%.
Okay.
Yesterday was supposed to be the final day for them to conclude. Then suddenly, along the line, the president was coming in. So President Mahama stepped into the meeting, went into the meeting with organized labor. Now it was between organized labor, finance minister, Minister of Employment and Jobs and Labor, then the President John Dramani Mahama. In the meeting, finance minister moved the figure from 6 to 8%.
Right.
Then labor dropped from 35 to 25. Then President Mahama told the finance minister, okay, then let's peg it at 10%. 10%, but labor unfortunately could not drop from 25 downwards. So then obviously they may have to accept the 10 because the president pleaded with them. Looking at the state of the economy, presidents that should be given ample time to reshape the economy, to revive the economy, to rehabilitate the economy. Then all of them will come and share. So yes, the labor obviously may have to agree to the 10, but even though they were disappointed actually, they were not too happy with it. Because in 2021, 2022, they were given 4%, 7%. And yesterday, another 10% consistently. So they appear very disappointed. But look at this one, Crosby. Whenever you have a president joining negotiation team, don't usually expect your figures to rise. The last time President Akufo-Addo stepped in, he gave labor 4% and 7%. The last time President John Dramani Mahama stepped around 2014, he gave labor 10% as cost of living allowance of 10%. Yesterday he went to the meeting, another 10%. So it tells you that clearly whenever you meet the president, your figures are very difficult to rise.
The presence of the president it had an effect on the negotiations.
It did. In fact, the presence of the president really did the magic. I would say it was somehow able to convince labor, and also, for want of a better word, intimidated them. They couldn't negotiate further because president told you, I can afford 10%.
So president went from 8%.
Finance minister, president moved from the 8% to 10%.
To 10%.
So let's all.
And then labor could not object
they
again.
Could not object.
What assurances did the president give
One,
Labour?
He told them that they should give him up to the end of this year to put the economy in shape. And also he talked about him setting up the emolument authority or emolument board, where we look at the general conditions, so look at the structure of monies that people take within this country. When everything improves, then obviously Labour is likely to benefit more. Even going forward, if everything should be in a very good condition, Labour should table 35%. He's ready to agree with them, because obviously it also affects his pay. So those were the assurances he gave Labour. And Labour yesterday, very disappointingly, walked out quietly, and nobody even was ready to speak to the media because they were so disappointed.
When the president came, did they? So you mentioned that some anticipated the president may arrive.
Exactly.
But did they like it when he came?
No, they did not, because you cannot sit and negotiate with the president.
Right.
You don't negotiate with the president.
It will intimidate you.
He will intimidate you. And you cannot look straight in the eyes of the president and tell him that, Mr. President, I will not accept this figure. And that will amount to some kind of disrespect.
I see.
Exactly. So they may have to keep quiet, listen to the president, table the 10%, and they concluded the meeting. All of them worked that way.
But what you're picking is that they are unhappy with the 10% increment.
Exactly. They look very, very disappointed. They are extremely unhappy with the 10% the government gave to them. Because the last year, 2024, the figure was around 23 and 25%.
Right.
Last year, from January to July, they were giving 23%. From July to December, we were giving 25%.
Okay.
Then 2025, you take 10%.
That's you're going down.
You're going down.
Daniel, hold on for me. Let me speak with Uswe Frie. He's a Labour consultant. Mr. Frie, thank you for joining us on the program. You've been following the development and you've seen and heard reactions from what happened yesterday. Are you surprised?
I'm not surprised per se, because to be honest, the increment is on the low side, and left to Labour, I think it would have gone up by, say, 30% or thereabouts. But at the same time, we should be cautious, because the economy it hasn't grown to the extent that we can give Labour 30% or more than that. But it's all about your negotiation skills. Nobody can force you to accept 10% or 5%, or it depends on your negotiation skills. So this all that I can speak for now.
From the perspective of Labour, you agree that they feel hard done by?
They feel
this is not fair for them?
Come again.
So what I'm asking is, if you're talking from the perspective of Labour, would you agree that they would feel that this is not fair to them?
Oh, sure. Because when you look at the economic indices, the cost of living, inflation, rent, transportation, fuel, and the rest, then it is to a large extent peanut. It cannot address the day-to-day cost of living. The increment cannot meet the day-to-day cost of living. When you take into consideration food, health, rent, and other social activities. Yes, it is far
inadequate.
Inadequate. Yes. I understand Labour. If they are a bit peeved, I understand them. But they must strengthen their negotiation skills also. Because if you sit down and then you agree on this, who are you to blame?
For Labour.
Though I don't want any protracted negotiations or a deadlock or whatever, but they should have stood on their grounds and maybe added more, because normally it is negotiation is just a give and take. The employer will just as for the employer, the employer may not necessarily give you what you want, but unless you push and push and push, you get it.
Right.
So before you come to you arrive at
a favorable
figure,
compromise.
Yes, a figure that will be acceptable to both parties. And so all negotiations.
Right.
Yes. So if you allow yourself to be bullied, then you don't have anybody to blame. If you allow yourself to be bullied, yes. So they should sharpen their negotiation skills. They should sharpen their negotiation skills, and then demand what is right, what is fair.
Okay.
Yes, but at the same time, maybe they took cognizance of the fact of the economic situation and then agreed on that figure. But to me, it is woefully inadequate. But at the same time, Labour shouldn't have allowed themselves to be cajoled into that.
Mr. Free, was the presence of the president yesterday necessary?
Yeah, not really. But the normal convention is this: the president or the employer, the Ghana government will select his team. Select his team, and then Union Labour will also select their team, and then they negotiate. To a large extent, the president's presence was maybe to bully them or to cajole them, or on one hand, but at the same time, to give the impression or to show them that he has he is interested he has personal interest in the discussions. So, and whatever he says may carry more weight, a lot of weight,
right,
than maybe the team. Yes, but normally the convention is Labour and then the employer, their representatives.
Okay.
And then they meet. When they meet, then after arriving on, then it is formally conveyed to the employer. And another issue is this: it settles once and for all that once the president is in the finance business, in whatever figures they agree on, it will be implemented without delay.
Okay.
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes after negotiating on a figure, arriving on a figure, when the employer's representatives inform the employer that this is what we agreed, and if it is over and above what the employer mandated them to do, then it becomes